information overloaded, stimulus saturated world, increasingly we rely on shortcuts within a communication to determine whether we should attend to a particular message or take action on a particular proposal that's presented to us. The work of my colleague Robert Cialdini, an esteemed social psychologist, suggests that there are 6 universal shortcuts that we all use to guide us to good decisions. They are reciprocation, scarcity, authority, consistency, consensus, and liking. And the message is that if we understand how each of these principles operates, how they are activated, and the context in which they work best, any communicator can significantly increase the effectiveness of their messaging, of their propositions, of their proposals by incorporating one or more of these universal effects. Let me give an example of how a couple of these principles can be applied to increase the effectiveness of a message. It's likely that on your travels you may have stayed in hotels and you would have noticed a little card in bathrooms that encourages you to reuse your towels and linens while you stay in that particular hotel. It turns out that we can significantly increase the effectiveness of that message by honestly pointing out to guests that previous guests who have stayed, interestingly, in the same room as them have also reused their towels. And compared to the standard message that hotels use, they typically increase recycling rates by between 26 and 30%. That's an astonishing increase if you consider that the change that was made was both small, honest, and entirely costless to implement. So a good example of how a small change, a small costless change, leads to a big effect. Here's another example. One of the things that the National Health Service here in the UK suffers from considerably are those patients who book appointments to see a doctor, to see a nurse, and then for whatever reason fail to show up and fail to cancel that appointment in enough time that it can be offered to another individual. The estimates we have here in the United Kingdom are that the costs of no-shows can be anything up to £800 million a year. That's £800 million that is essentially wasted in the health service system. In a series of studies, we found that we can significantly reduce those wasted costs by again employing a small change, this time from the principle of consistency. When we asked patients, after making an appointment on the telephone, to just verbally repeat back the time and day of their appointment, that typically reduced no-shows by around 3%. 3% doesn't sound an awful lot, but 3% of £800 million is still, tens of millions of pounds of potential savings. In fact, we didn't just stop there. One of the things we know from persuasion research is that the extent to which people actively get involved in a commitment by writing things down amplifies the effect. And so when patients were asked to write the time and day of the appointment on a little appointment card themselves, that led to an 18% drop in no-shows. And so now that small change doesn't potentially save tens of millions of dollars, it could actually potentially save hundreds of millions. So it's these types of small changes, informed from persuasion science, that can have such a big impact and a big effect when it comes to creating effective communications and change programs.